Local programming on KRWG made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to Fronteras, a Changing America. I'm Edmundo Resendez. On today's Fronteras, we take a look at the opioid crises. A series of fatal drug overdoses in Chillicothe, Ohio, caused law enforcement to realize more needed to be done for addicted individuals in their city. These officers teamed up with social workers to create an overdose task force. Each week, they return to the sites of overdoses to track down residents struggling with addiction and put them in touch with needed services.
Every Wednesday morning in Chillicothe, Ohio, this overdose task force meets. There's a police officer, a sheriff's deputy, and a social worker from a local addiction treatment center. The group sets out to follow up with each person in Ross County who overdosed the week before. Their mission? Get them into treatment. The program started after a string of fatal overdoses in 2016, and county leaders came together to find a solution.
Out of the meetings came a decision that we needed some type of team to go out and speak with people that have overdosed, either their families or both, family and the overdose victim, and somebody named it PORT, which is a post-overdose response team.
PORT allows law enforcement to take on the role of a social worker. They talk to residents about addiction and help them find treatment, even if that means driving them to facilities out of state when there's nothing available in their area. Today, the team follows up with just 4 overdoses. In the past, they've had as many as 20.
Whatever. The last month or so has been down, which, hey, that's how we like it. I'd just like to come in one day we don't have any.
At their first stop, resident Chad Lurdy is shocked when the PORT team tells him his friend struggles with addiction.
I think very highly of him, and my heart's broke. I had no idea he had a problem.
Recently, PORT began offering training on how to use the overdose reversal drug naloxone, also known as Narcan.
Dave Weber, one of the deputies, said that you're in a position to be really helpful in this situation.
I'll try. I mean, I don't want to see anybody die.
And you think you might go through the Narcan training?
I'm gonna very seriously consider that.
Here in Ross County, the rate of fatal opioid-related overdoses is nearly double the national average and one of the highest in the state. Now, PORT, with a relatively small budget, has managed to get people the resources they need in time to hopefully prevent more of these overdoses from happening.
Still, not everyone supports what they do.
We have some people that are upset that we give Narcan. You know, they say that it was this person's choice to do it, you know, but we kind of, you know, we don't buy that. My response to them is, what if it were your son, daughter, or wife, or husband laying there on the ground? Would you want us to turn around and walk away?
You guys need to go to them because these people are not in a situation where they can necessarily seek out help themselves.
Yep. When we first get there, they're reluctant to speak with us. We explain what we're there for, and we're not going to arrest them. We're not there in a law enforcement capacity. And, you know, most of them open up and talk to us.
Nearly a year ago, Jessica Lutz overdosed at a store with her daughters. She remembers when the PORT team came to her door a few days later.
My doorbell rang, and I was scared to death because here comes my mom, like, there's an officer and a woman at your front door, and you know they want to talk to you. And I walked out there, and the officer said, I'm not here to arrest you. I'm just here to make sure she's okay. She would just like to talk to you. And I met Tracy Hathaway.
This ain't working.
The social worker, who was also a recovering addict, convinced Jessica that there were resources that would help her get clean.
Gotcha.
There is hope that people can recover. She was doing it. There was this place of people that were doing it all the time that I did not know existed. You know, all these recovery places that we don't hear about.
PORT got Jessica into outpatient care immediately, and after a month, a bed at a nearby recovery center.
That's really cute.
Right now, there are only a few programs like this in Ohio, but local lawmakers recently put aside over $1 million to be able to replicate PORT in cities across the state.
and the stakes are higher than ever. Each day, more than 142 people in the U.S. die from a drug overdose. That's more than the number of people who die from gun violence and car accidents combined. It's something that Jessica doesn't take for granted. She came home from rehab just a few weeks ago and credits Port with having saved her life.
Just to have that conversation after something like that happens, and no matter who you are, that's so scary. We don't want to die. We just don't know how not to use. And to find somebody that understands that and knows that we don't want to wake up and do these things every day. There's no pleasure in what we have to go through each and every day. Just to listen to that conversation and know that it really can happen is what changed everything for me.
To see more videos from this series on the front lines of a drug crisis, follow us on Facebook. Side Effects Public Media is a reporting collaborative led by WFYI in Indianapolis. Our partnership includes KBIA in Columbia, Missouri, St. Louis Public Radio, Illinois Public Media, WOSU in Columbus, Ohio, and WNIN in Evansville, Indiana.
NMSU WAVE Rx collaboratively identifies and implements evidence-based practices to increase protective behaviors and decrease negative consequences associated with the abuse of alcohol and prescription opioids in our community. Piper Coalson is the program manager for WAVE Rx at NMSU. Piper, welcome to Fronteras, Changing America.
Thank you very much.
Let's get the conversation started by discussing what WAVE is and how WAVE Rx ties into the program.
Sure, perfect. So WAVE stands for Wellness, Alcohol, Violence Education Program. It encompasses the wellness of students physically, but also emotionally. So it has actually teamed up. There was a merger, and there is now the wellness part of the health center is a part of WAVE. And so they handle the the wellness part. The alcohol part is something that they work on. It's not an abstinence program, but it teaches people how to be safe while they're drinking. We go to the V, so that's for violence. That's violence, physical, sexual, emotional. And so we reach out to students and talk to them about what that is, how to get out of it if you're in an abusive relationship. And so WAVE Rx is a grant that came down in 2015 it's a federal grant that comes down to the state and then moves down to UNM and then trickles down to the other higher ed institutions in the state that participate. In those groups that participate, the university, so it's UNM, New Mexico State University, San Juan, and I have it written down, Tech, New Mexico Tech. And so our grant specifically says that we are working to prevent underage drinking and prescription opioid abuse. So sometimes it gets a little confusing that we say opioids, but we always want to say prescription opioids simply because that is our focus, is what doctors give out. Not so much when we move off to the illegal drugs like heroin. So anytime someone misuses prescription drugs, then that is an illegal use of the medication or the drug itself. But those are our goals: underage drinking and prescription opioid abuse.
Underage drinking, I remember many years ago here in our community, we lost a student to drinking.
That's right.
And that's when WAVE came around. But now you throw in something else into the mix, like opioid abuse. How challenging is it for universities to deal with these type of problems?
Well, it's a really new thing that we're facing on the level of, for example, we have a student lifestyle survey that we give every year. We just recently added a question about prescription opioids on it because it was something that we weren't really addressing. And so because New Mexico is so high with the problem of opioids, it's something that we felt that the federal level that we needed the funding to address it. And for me, I just feel really excited and I'm grateful to be working on this grant with the idea that I get to work with students. I have the opportunity to have, a captured audience of students to do the prevention of them ever getting addicted to opioids. and letting them, follow their goals and achieve, what they want in life without having, addiction be something that's going to be a problem for the rest of their lives.
How familiar are students with opioid abuse?
Actually, we did focus groups, and a lot of people, staff and students, weren't really aware of the abuse of them. At what point in one of our focus groups, we were talking about prescription opioids, and people started talking about antidepressants. And so we had to steer it back. So no, we're not talking about antidepressants, we're talking about opioids. So there's kind of a low awareness in the community right now about opioids. And that's kind of where we come in, is to disseminate the information into the community so that they're aware of it, so we can stop it.
Well, let's distinguish between what is known as legal opioids, which is prescription,
right,
and then there is the illegal opioids like heroin.
Right.
Prescription is a gateway to the illegal drugs, is that correct?
That's right. Well, we can't always say that, but we do see a lot of people, they get prescribed opioids for legitimate surgery or pain. But opioids are so dangerous when it comes to getting addicted. And so it can take one prescription, 30 pills.
Just one prescription?
One prescription.
Of 30 pills?
Of 30 pills. For someone to get addicted. And it wasn't somebody playing around or misusing, they simply were prescribed something. But we do know that there's a lot of people, something we really press is locking medication up, lock boxes, so that your child or your teenager can't go in and experiment with them. Because you see, like I said, just one bottle of pills.
Here's the thing, I mean, about 25 years ago, I had surgery to remove my wisdom teeth.
Sure.
And at the time, they gave me 6 days worth of prescription pills.
Sure.
6 days worth. Has something changed where they're now extending it to 30 days or to longer than 6 days?
I'm not an expert to speak on that. If I can kind of throw my idea, there was a lot of push from the pharmaceutical to get doctors prescribing. And, we have people that are doing doctor searching, and so they hop from doctor to doctor.
Doctor shopping.
Yeah. And they go and they get multiple prescriptions. But New Mexico actually and other states have something called the PDMP, and that is where we have providers and pharmacists on one computer, one server, that we can see, okay, actually they went to another doctor and they got prescribed this, so we can't prescribe it to them. Do you have a problem? Like, what can we do for you? Or CVS and Walgreens can say, oh, this was already filled here, we can't fill it here. Like, what's going on? And so there are things getting put into place to try to curb that. And there's a lot of awareness, and it was just declared there's an opioid epidemic. And so, we have the attention coming on it. And so what we're trying to do is get things implemented, tangible things, so that it can be stopped. And we can talk about it all we want, but until we get those things.
Well, as a result of having this program in place, doesn't it cause for these people that are addicted to opioids to go into the illegal side of opioid abuse?
Sure, it can, absolutely. I know I've heard personal stories of people that they weren't able to get the prescriptions anymore, and so they did switch to heroin. Now, I don't have the statistics on those, but from the documentaries and the research that I've done on this, that's very relevant. It's a really relevant theory.
Let's bring the conversation back to why WAVE started, and it started because of alcohol abuse, in particular with underage drinkers. Talk about recent studies conducted by WAVE regarding alcohol use on campus.
Sure. So New Mexico State University has there's this idea that we're a party school, They were a huge party school.
There's a perception.
It's a perception, absolutely. And today, actually, before I came over here to do this, I looked online. Huffington Post always puts a list of the top 10 party schools in the nation. I looked at it, we're not on there. I looked at some other different sites and other ways, other lists, and we weren't on any of them. And so if you look at the statistics, we have a question that says, how much do you think students drink at NMSU? And so it's the average, the mean that came out is that students believe that their perception that their classmates drink 8.3 drinks a week. In actuality, it's 2.3 drinks a week.
Did this perception begin many years ago when the border was more wide open and students would go down to Juarez as part of an annual ritual?
You know, I've talked to people about that, and of course I don't have the data on that, which would be really interesting to gather. But I do think that is something that we used to be known for, that you got to go across the border to drink and drown.
Because drinking age in Mexico is 18.
Mm-hmm. And they didn't,
and not solemnly enforced.
Yeah, I know a lot of high school students that went to. I mean, it was where you could go to kind of do whatever you wanted. And you know, I was talking to somebody actually today. I was going over these statistics with them, and I said, well, yeah, like back in the day when Juarez was hot, and he said, I'd never go to Juarez. It's sketchy. Like, there's no way I would go. And I mean, that's the difference now.
What trends have you found with NMSU students regarding alcohol abuse?
Actually, we have an interesting thing with binge drinking. So binge drinking is 4 drinks for females, 5 drinks for males, in a 2-hour period.
2-hour period.
2-hour
okay.
period. Now, New Mexico State University, compared to the rest of the state, is 7% higher. 40.
Wait a minute, it's 7% higher when compared to UNM and the other universities?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, but if we look at the statistics, we have a lot of students that aren't drinking at all. And the percentage of students that are binge drinking is lower than you would think, and students that are not drinking is really high.
Where are underage students getting their alcohol?
So there's the two highest percentages of where students are getting alcohol. Number one is at houses and apartments, and so
the so-called house parties.
The house parties, sure. And the other one is actually from parents and guardians, and that's concerning.
Well, let's talk perceptions, because in my perception, New Mexico has got some of the most strict rules regarding underage drinking, where isn't it not a felony for a parent to give alcohol?
It is.
An adult to give alcohol to a minor?
Yes.
And aren't there also rules and laws in place for establishments that serve alcohol to minors where they could lose their liquor license?
Yes.
So you have all of these perceptions, and yet you're telling me that there's still this is a problem.
Right. It is. And you know, we in our focus groups we kind of talked about why is it okay for people to serve alcohol to minors? You know, some people say, well, I'd rather them be doing it here than going out somewhere and being, you know, drinking and driving and things like that. Another is, you know, the culture, and we have, you know, so many get-togethers and family things that we the alcohol is a part of. It's kind of a rite of passage, and so and those are some, you know, in our focus groups. Those are two of the things that kind of came up when we were talking to people in the community.
But there's dangers that come with minors getting addicted to alcohol.
Sure.
What are those dangers regarding alcohol abuse by students?
Well, we looked at students that would binge drink, and 50% of them have missed classes because of it. So that's the first one. Binge drinking, especially for younger people, can lead very quickly into addiction. We also know DWIs. We don't make very good decisions when we've been drinking. And so, you know, all those things, these are risks that students, not only underage, but those of age, participating in over drinking and binge drinking, dangerous things can happen. I mean, with Stephen Judd, we saw that. I think it was, he took 18 shots that night.
And that was in a very short period of time.
That was in a short period of time. It was one night at a bar. Mm-hmm. So 18 shots. There was, we read, and this doesn't have to do with university, but a 14-year-old died of alcohol poisoning after sharing a gallon of whiskey with her friends.
Where are students these days consuming alcohol?
So we see at apartments, and and then we also know with a bar and restaurants. 32% are getting their alcohol from bars and restaurants.
32%, again, this is my perception of, you know, knowing that the state legislature has passed many strict rules regarding businesses serving alcohol to minors.
Yeah.
There's a law where if a business gets caught 3 times, they lose their license.
Right.
Yet these students are getting alcohol at these establishments. Right. Why is that?
You know, that's something that one of our strategies for our grant is to talk to bars and restaurants in the influencing area around New Mexico State University and remind them of that. And also not just say, hey, don't do this, but to come and say, we really want to bring somebody in to do the training with you, free of charge. Just give us some time and we'll meet with them and get you up to speed. So they know how to check IDs, so they know what to do if someone asks and you can tell that they're underage. We really just want to educate people and let them know the dangers for their business and the way it affects our students as well.
What role does WAVE play in doing outreach to the students, you know, here at New Mexico State University?
Yeah, so we have 10 peer eds. They're actually being trained today for this semester, and they do tablings on all of the relevant issues that WAVE stands for. They also do class presentations if a professor asks them to come and talk about sexual assault, sexual harassment. They'll go in and do a presentation. They have PowerPoint presentations. They have swag, which are just cool little things to hand out with facts and phone numbers, just so students know that WAVE exists. So if something happens, they're not alone.
So it's a resource on campus
It is.
that students can turn to. Okay, so this is me talking as a scared parent.
Okay.
I have a senior in high school right now.
Mm-hmm.
She'll be graduating in May, and she's looking to go off to college in the fall. What do I, as a parent, what can I do to educate my daughter into doing outreach with programs like WAVE and getting educated on alcohol safety, alcohol abuse?
That's it, education. I think, you know, as parents sitting down and saying, look, these are the consequences that are going to happen. You know, these are the dangers. We want you to be safe. We want you to be healthy. And it's educating, and that's what WAVE does. WAVE doesn't come out and, you know, stand on a box and preach. They go out and they say, hey, these are the facts. And
it's not an abstinence program, as you
it's
mentioned.
not. Right. And so, you know, it's just education. It's spending the time to explain it. I mean, young people, they want to learn. They want to know things. And that's what's really neat about seeing the tabling, you know, students coming up and having conversations. And whenever I'm at the WAVE, whenever I'm at a WAVE meeting or talking to peer eds, they always have some really cool story about somebody participating in whatever the activity was and something new that somebody said. And so that's just, you know, and it's finding out what resources are on campus. and just saying, hey, let's get involved in that.
Why are you passionate about this program?
Well, like I said, I think everybody that's here at the university, it's about the students. I really like the age of college and high school students. That's kind of my niche of working with people. I feel like I can relate to them. I just enjoy what they have to say, and prevention, that's the key. We can go downstream and be pulling people out of the water after they're addicted and after the problem has happened, or we could be at the top saying, hey, let us help you. Let us find this problem that is causing this, and we're going to stop it. And for me, to be able to stop someone from having something that's going to affect them the rest of their lives, I mean, that's the most rewarding thing for me, and that's why I do stuff like this.
Where can students find WAVE on campus?
It's in the activity center. You walk into the activity center and you can just ask the people at the front.
Piper, I want to thank you very much for joining us on Fronteras at Changing America.
Thank you.
I'm Edmundo Resendez. Thank you for joining us on Fronteras at Changing America.